This video is only one part of an in-depth review, so check out the rest at thegoodride.com. Thanks for watching. This is a review of the Burton 3D Fish. This is the 2021, but it's not really changing for 2022 other than graphics and maybe a few minor tweaks. And I really wanted to take my time with this guy. I just straight up bought this and I wanted to put it through its paces and compare it to other favorites that you see here, like the Capita Spring Break Powder Glider and the Jones Mind Expander. I rode this with Union Atlas, Union Super Pros / Contact Pros, Burton Kendos, and my Burton Tourists. I've got to say, this board is super fun in the conditions that I rode. Decent powder to really good powder. And this 56 did really well against these two 58s, and I compared them same day a lot of the time and to other powder boards that I was trying throughout the season. And to give you a short summary, this was one of the standouts of powder boards. It is such a fun, tapered, directional, floaty, turny board. One of my only complaints was the base after a wax felt a little chalky. I had to do some extra work with it, but once I got that fixed, it had that fast base glide comparable to the boards to the left of me, and it just floats, it just slashes, it just turns. It's incredibly surfy and set back without feeling too much on the tail, like you're just riding at the end of the board. It still felt like there was some tail there for some air, and I just had a time with this, and I'm glad I spent a whole season testing it. Sorry this is coming out late, but I'm not that sorry, because I got some really good powder with it. So when it comes to the sizing, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go 52 or 56. I ended up going 56, and I'm so glad I did, because now I'm wondering if the 60 would be more fun because of how easy it was for me to handle this for size 9 boots and about 190 to 195 pounds this season. So I was having a time with it. When it comes to the shape, it's 30 mil taper. I think it's the most tapered board in Burton's line. It just feels very set back, very directional, but they're doing something with the side cut. And when you're in powder, it doesn't feel like you've got 3 centimeters of taper. It doesn't. It feels like it's less. The camber profile is like both of these, kind of flat to rocker, but then you get some weird 3D stuff going with this guy. And you can kind of see here, it's really cool in powder. It really makes for a fun turning experience, kind of like the Mind Expander. And then you've got this weird ass tail in the back that has all kinds of strange bends, and it's a pain in the ass to scrape. But this does have a very forgiving profile. It's very easy to skid a turn, yet it 1-foots and flat bases really well. It's a very stable profile underfoot and very consistent in almost all conditions, and doesn't have that auto spinny feel like some continuous rocker boards or hybrid rocker boards do. Or if you compare this to, let's say, the Wave Tracer, it is much more stable than that. Now let's talk flex here. It's got kind of a medium-ish flex. Kind of stiff on the nose, but not too stiff. Kind of stiff on the tail, not too stiff, and a little more medium between the feet. And it's just really easy to butter, much easier than you would think for this flex. And it's pretty fun on an ollie, but in comparison to, let's say, like the Showstopper and other boards with a little bit of camber, they're directional camber boards in Burton's line, this just doesn't pop as hard, but it pops really well for flat camber and was very comparable to the Jones Mind Expander and Capita Spring Break Powder Glider. All 3 of these boards have a poppy, fun personality. I think flex-wise, this is a little similar to the Spring Break. The Jones Mind Expander is a little stiffer, but all 3 have a fun, unique flex personality that's easy to use and play around with from an average snowboarder's perspective. Now, when it comes to speed, The base glide was amazing when I got it right out of the wrapper and took it out on a powder day. I forgot to even wax it. Then I waxed it once, it got a little chalky and slow. Waxed it again, really got after it. It came back to being that kind of Burton glidey base, but it was kind of perplexing, that chalky feel on one of those days. I just felt like I didn't have the glide that I would with the new Spring Break powder glider that has a base that's faster than the old one, and the good old Jones Mind Expander. But once I got it tuned up, it was pretty close to those. I think the Mind Expander's maybe the fastest, and these two are just a touch behind, but it's not something that I would use in the decision-making process, because all three of these have exceptional base glide. When it comes to high-speed assaults, the Mind Expander is probably the best, but this Burton fish handled speed better than you would think for its flex, and I think both these two boards are about the same. The Capita is getting a lot softer and a lot lighter, and so that can sometimes not handle speed as well as the two on the other sides of it, but it's pretty good. When it comes to end of the day resort riding, all three of these boards can hang, but I think I'd rather be on the Fish because it can just negotiate that kind of messy snow, weaving in and out of bumps that were great earlier but are now like moguls with powder on it that you might have to go through to get to the good stuff. This is probably the best of the three, and that's what I liked it for. All three are just exceptional in trees and weaving through bumps, but this was just a little bit better. A little bit more excellent. When it comes to edge hold, the only board that really has good edge hold here is the Mind Expander. It has a slightly disrupted side cut. So if you're looking for a powder board that can handle maybe an icy drop that then leads into really good powder, that's the one. The Spring Break Powder Glider and the Burton 3D Fish are not as good at that, but some about this flat to rocker did pretty well on the few hard patches I got with the Burton 3D Fish. I almost liked it as much as or more than their directional camber boards. And I think the Spring Break is probably third there. When it comes to turn initiation, they're all really quick, but I think the Burton Fish was the fastest. It just was an easy turner. And when you got that nose going in deep powder, it was so fun to turn. It really comes down to what you prefer board-wise. All three have an amazing turning experience in powder, but all of them are really weak when it comes to turning and carving on groomers. So they're better than you would think for being kind of more powder boards first, but they're not as fun as like a lot of Burton's directional camber boards and such like that. Like I would want to be on the showstopper on groomers 10 times out of 10 versus the 3D Fish. But it'll do in a pinch. Now, powder, what we've mainly been talking about the whole time. This has great directional float. It doesn't feel as set back on board as you would think for its specs and what it is, but man, it was fun. That 56 is such a tree cheetah. It's such an easy, quick turning, slashy, surfy ride. It feels more like a surfboard than the Powder Glider and the Mind Expander. They are surfy, don't get me wrong, but they did not feel surfy like this. All three just really shine in their own way. The Mind Expander is just such a fast, damp, fun board. The Powder Glider is such a unique board in the way that it sits on top of snow. It just feels like it doesn't ever really want to sink except for the tail a little bit, where this feels a little more into the snow and the nose is kind of guiding you through it. You feel like you're turning like this, and the Jones Mind Expander is somewhere in between. It's just all about what you're more into. It's not that one's better than the other. It's just about personal preference. All three boards just rip powder, and basically, to sum it up, this is a Good Ride favorite. It is a very recommendable board. I'm not particularly stoked on the graphics, but it became beautiful to me after I rode it, and now I can't stop looking at it. It's kind of weird how things work that way. All our reviews are a best effort, objective opinion from an average rider's perspective. There's no brand oversight, and we're free to say whatever we want. We send back everything unless it's a favorite, then we ask to keep those or straight up buy them. Now, if you need advice, fill out the eHarmony profile in the Contact Us section of the site. It's the only way I can help you properly. If you want to support us, and if what we reviewed appeals to you, it helps if you buy through our links. So, thanks for watching.